project that we at in Thailand and Southeast Asia really kind of, we count it as one of the turning point of our contemporary art scene. It is part of the Cities on the Move. And this project actually started at Vienna Secession. It's a celebration of 100 years of Vienna. And they invite Hanru and Hans Obrist to curate a show about Asian city and how it's totally kind of like, progress in at around like the end of 20 and the beginning of 21st century. So after they started in Vienna and they tour around European city and also in the US, it came back to Asian city, which is Bangkok. And of course, Bangkok has no museum. And it's the first time that small alternative space institutions work together, and it's facilitated by the French embassy. So this is a photo of Ole Charin and Dominique Gonzalez in front of Project 204. And we had the exhibition kind of exhibited around the city, and it's the first time that I think, that there's kind of mobilized the Asian artists, to different parts of the world, and this is one of the very important projects for us. And the other project that we did, was it was an invitation by the Japan Foundation. So back then, you always hear the name of the foundation from like Japan, Australia, all this, the French and the Goethe, they played so many important roles, in mobilize artists and funding around. And for us, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, we always, the function, we always a guest, right, in other city. We never been a host. We never been able to invite people to come to our city. The artists in Southeast Asia, we always see ourselves in Japan, in other cities, right? So this is very interesting. This is also one of the projects that has been kind of initiated by the Japan Foundation, and they invite 8 curators from 8 different cities to think about what is Asian art on the 21st century. So we proposed, we met together, and then we did 3 years project, research and exhibition, local exhibition. I try to collaborate with India and China, but they're not interested in me. They said, I have nothing to do with you. So they work together with other countries, so I have to do it alone. But I invite artists from China and India to Thailand, and they were so surprised, to be in this exhibition, which I call Sorry for the Inconvenience, because the main show, the main project is under construction, right? So I kind of intentionally put the show to the edge of the city, 3 spaces that super difficult to access, because I want people to experience the difficulty of maneuvering around the Bangkok area during our a major transformation in the city, because we started to build the not high-speed train, sorry, the MRT and the train system. And for me, it's really good chance, to learn and to study and to grow up together with young 8 curators back then. So one of them is Sun Jung Kim, Pili, and I remember Pili was only 26 years old, and now he's running, big institution in Hong Kong. So this is how we grow up together, with the money of the Japan Foundation, but this is already history, okay. So, Project 304 has been running from 1996 up until 2002. We were invited by great curators, from European city. One is Ho Han Ru, and the other one is Charles Eche. And they were invited to do a project in Gwangju. And the proposal is they wanted to invite artist collective, to auto-curated the show in Gwangju. And actually the project is very, very ambitious. They have 4 stations, like Project 1 and to do Project 4. But for us, you know, we're part of Project 1. We were in the exhibition hall. And can you believe and remember like how if you invite like 150 artists, collective, to Gwangju Biennale. I remember when we arrived, the head, the staff and the technician resigned, okay? So the disaster started, you know, since then. And we were so funny. I mean, after, of course it was super angry, you know, back then, but it was really chaotic and very beautiful. It's highly anarchist, you know, but I was really, for me, you know, this is how I met the young artist group, you know, which is called Wongrupa, and they got award as well, you know, so this is not fair, okay? I know, they sit together, and Wongrupa just celebrated 25 years, you know, yesterday, so congratulations. And for me, you know, I mean, when after we come back from Gwangju, I was like, okay, what are we doing here? I mean, especially if you run the institution like that. And I remember, like, you know, I talked to my friend from Philippines, like, the life of independent art space and alternative space, it's like, I'm working with Jim Thompson Silk Company, so now, it's like, you know, the silkworms, you know, life cycle. Life cycle of the silkworms is 28 days, right? For us, 7 years. 7 years is longest time, you know, for alternative space to survive. So we were like, okay, it's kind of got what everyone wants. You know, I've been doing a lot after under construction. I was invited by many institutions. Apichat Pong, if you remember this name, you know, he was my partner in crime. So we studied together in Chicago. And then he's the one who's taking care of the film section. He got awards from Cannes Film Festival. So after that, like after 7 years, all my artists were in the Biennale, you know, everywhere. I said, do we still need 3 or 4? And it's like, it was so tiring, you know, running the alternative space. You guys know it. It was tiring, we have no money, you know, and it's like, okay, let's stop. So, and also like being part of the, you know, Gwangju Biennale, I felt like we should close this chapter. And as a student of art administration, the question that I ask myself is, can you run the space without having a space? Can we still run an organization by, you know, if we don't have space, it can be more free, and we can do whatever we want, and we can be less territorial. We can work with everyone, right? So then we decide, let's close this chapter. I remember Superflex said, you are so brave, you know, like to close the space. I said, but I'm so relieved, you know, after that I can do whatever I want, right? But we still keep the name, as I told you, we keep the name, and we still do the Bangkok Experimental Film Festival. And it was so surprised to see people still think about it, and they benefit a lot of this project, especially young filmmakers. So we resurrected again after like 12 years of absence. And this time we were invited by one of the biggest corporate department store in the middle of the city called One Bangkok. And they got a project, like, you know, they invite Apichat Pong, you know, to do the VR project called Conversation with the Sun. And we managed to invite Tilda Swinton. And this project was supported by Chanel, you know, which is super, like, we were supported by Chanel, you know. It's totally beyond belief, you know. I mean, I just like, it was dreaming, you know, when we were at the opening. And from like, in the past, you know, we have only 10 people attend the Experimental Film Festival. And this version, we have 1,000 people. And a lot of students, a lot of younger generation, we're like, wow, I have to wait 30 years, you know, to see this. But it's really interesting to see it happen. Okay, one of the members of our project, it's this important artist in Thailand, which is Montien Bunma. And he was part of the committee of 3 or 4. And he always talked about, back then, Montien was invited to everywhere, to Amazon, to Johannesburg, to everywhere. And he was, after his Amazon visit, he was like, you know what? I think we should do something about the Mekong. If Amazon and other region like South Africa and Latin America can do something about the river and bring everyone together. He said, we can do the Mekong Biennale. And he planted these seeds, to everyone. And then he died. So for me, as part of the committee, and he always kind of project on my head, you have to do it, you have to do it. So and as a mentor, I really respect him, and I want to follow this trail, because for me, before I started the career, we're not interested in doing something among Southeast Asia. And now I know that, we have so little connection among ourselves. And then the project like Rockefellers, ANA, and the Ford Foundation, they're trying to bring everyone, back to the region. And I think it's very important to look at your backyards, to look at your friends, instead of the US or France, or Germany. So I applied for the grant at ACC, and which is in New York. And normally this grant, they give the money for you, and you have to go to New York. And I told them that I don't want to go to New York. I want to use this money to go to the Mekong country, which is 7 countries, from Yunnan, right, to Vietnam. And they are so great that they allow me to do it. So, and then I went to Yunnan, and then along the countries, along the Mekong rivers. And after that, I really want to do something. I'm still thinking about the Biennale. I invite the potential partners, from Yunnan, from Vietnam, from everywhere, to Chiang Mai. And I was so lucky to get the money from the Hubert Ball Foundation, the German foundation, who based in Chiang Mai. And we did the brainstorming session. So we're trying to get to know each other. We introduced activists, artists, and everyone. We spent about 4 days together, trying to think about how to collaborate among the Mekong countries. And at the end, it's not possible. 2002, 2003, Burma. You cannot even bring video, to shoot in Burma, right? And Vietnam, and also it was very difficult. It's too difficult. So I stopped it. I put this potential project in my drawer. I said, okay, maybe one day, maybe in the near future, I can do it. But I'm not gonna call Mekong Biennale. I will call it Mekong occasionally. This is very Southeast Asia. So this is copyright. This is my copyright. If I ever see anyone use this term, I will sue you. Okay, so this research lead me to another project, which is super interesting, and I learned a lot, from this project. And so from the Mekong, it leads me to Vietnam. For my research trip, it kind of gave me, I met a lot of people, including with Din Kule, our good friend who recently passed away. So Din decided to invite me to do something, again, Biennale, like Saigon Biennale. So, oh, Jeff, you should come to Vietnam, and work with us, And so I was like, oh, I cannot do this alone. Actually, I wanted to have someone, who know Vietnam before the open door policy. And that person was Gridthiya Gaweewong. Why was that? Because Gridthiya's father is working in the Thai embassy, and he was in Vietnam, in Hanoi, before the open door policy. And he saw something that we never saw. And I was in Vietnam after the open door policy, and we did a lot of many collaboration projects among Southeast Asia. So we saw Vietnam in different periods, and I wanted him, to be my co-curators. So what we did was we went around, from the north to the south. We met a lot of old army artists and also younger generation. But at the end, we don't want to call Biennale. We call something else. I proposed the project. So instead of doing Biennale, let's do something different. Let's do something like a durational exhibition, like 3 projects within 2 years. And of course, Vietnam, back then, they have a lot of museums, but it's a museum of what? War Remnant Museum, they have Women Museum, they have Fine Art Museum. They have different type of museum. But where people go, we asked the Vietnamese people. They went to the zoo. Like, shall we do something in the zoo as well? This is where people were, right? So there was I was so naive, and I know nothing about Vietnam. I was totally underestimate the censorship, this kind of I never know that I have to send something to the government before you make exhibition. And they ask you everything. What does it mean? Why you choose this artist? What does it mean, right, when we invite artists? And I also invite many artists from the West who did anti-Vietnam War with video. So we have to translate into Vietnamese. That was amazing, and I never did this kind of project before, because in Thailand we don't have that kind of process. They allow us to show and they censor us later, which is different, right? And we kind of know where's the lie. But in Vietnam, I don't know the lies. And then, so what happened was, normally if you're curators, you are the one who decide when is the opening. And then we announce to the public, right? Because we have so many international people who wanted to come. But in Vietnam, no, we cannot do that, because we have to apply for permission. And by the time that we announced the opening, we didn't get the permission yet. So what should we do? So we just open privately in our building, in our office. So this is what we did. We did one small show. We call it Salon Exhibition. We include the artwork from the army artists, and kind of juxtaposed with artists from both Vietnam and Asia and around the world. And we have performance, we have the talk. This is one of the projects by Yoko Ono that we intend to show it at the Women Museum. And also the right one is Li Hong Lee. And on the right-hand side, we already installed the work, but they closed, they locked the door. We cannot open for the public. That was happening in the Ho Chi Minh Fine Art Museum. And on the left-hand side, during the opening, we have the performance by the Vietnamese artist with his father. So this is what happened. So for me, when I saw this, when I witnessed and experienced this censorship in Vietnam, I was so depressed and exhausted. And I need to work with someone with like-minded people. And that was the beginning of my Jim Thompson period. So working at the Jim Thompson, I would call it, this is in the in-between space. In 2007, after the Saigon Open City, I joined Jim Thompson Art Center as a director and working for an institution like a foundation, which is very different from working with Project 304 or alternative space, where there were plenty of artistic freedom, but limited resources. And it's challenging. So to work with a private foundation like the James H.W. Thompson Foundation and the Art Center, one must comply and align with the missions and the vision, which is to support Thai art and culture. So it's broad enough for us to reinterpret and twist and align with the contemporary art in the 21st century. And of course, there was two sides of the coin. On one hand, there is an adequate funding for me and my team to operate. And on the other is the freedom of expression and respecting the stakeholders, or people who involved with Jim Thompson, which is actually, it bears the same name with the brand, Jim Thompson, which belongs to the Thai Silk Company. So even though we are different entity, we are non-profit, operate under the James H.W. Thompson Foundation, while the other is corporate, we didn't get funding from them, as most of the public assume. So for us, it's very difficult to get money. When we apply to the grant, say, oh, you already part of Jim Thompson, it's different, It's a totally different entity. So the most interesting points in this whole context is history, and especially of the foundation, which is the legacy of Jim Thompson and his connection with our Cold War history. Now I know, I told Dakun that now I know why you guys invited me to be the keynote speaker tonight, because we are in the old military space, right? And there's this connection between Jim Thompson and here, this space. So who is Jim Thompson? Even though the Art Center and the foundation are deeply connected, but not just about the physical proximity, but also about the historical figures of Jim Thompson himself, whose legacy is tied to art and culture diplomacy and the Cold War geopolitics in Thailand and Southeast Asia. Jim Thompson was an American entrepreneur who came to Thailand in 1946 as a U.S. military officer. So he's working in the Office of the Strategic Service, which is OSS. If anyone knows about OSS, it was the forerunner of the CIA, okay? So he settled in Bangkok and established the Silk Company, working closely through the 1950s with the Jam Muslim community next door of his house. And he started the silk business back then. So across from the Ban Krua community, which is the Jam Muslim community, he built a very beautiful traditional Thai teak wood house. And he also collected a lot of artifacts and art objects from Thailand, as well as Southeast Asia and Asia. So in 1967, after he opened his shop in the middle of Bangkok, he went for holiday in Cameron Highland in Malaysia, and he never come back. So this mysterious disappearance of Jim Thompson totally stimulated the speculation about espionage, political intrigue, and Cold War intelligence operation. Thompson bequeathed the house to his nephew, Henry B. Thompson, who decided to open the house as a museum, and also started the James H.W. Thompson Foundation as the governing body of the Jim Thompson House Museum, registered as a nonprofit under the Thai law in 1975. So this year we celebrate the 50 years anniversary of our foundation, and has a show with full venues around the area, which is Jim Thompson House, and our library, Art Center, and Bangkok Art and Culture Center. I will show you the image later. So this is a beautiful house that over the past decades, the Jim Thompson House has welcomed over 330 visitors a year. So providing a guide tour in multiple languages, for example, English, French, Japanese, and Chinese. Today, we are one of the top 5 tourist attractions in Bangkok. So this is the main income of our foundation, because I don't want to say never, we rarely get the funding from the government or others. And what about the Art Center? If the Jim Thompson Foundation is 50 years old, the Art Center is quite young. We are only 22 years old. It started in 2003, and out of necessity and driven by politics. The foundation faced a major challenge, the controversial plan for the expressway by the Bangkok City and Bangkok Expressway Public Company. So it conceived in 1980s. So as a foundation in Thailand, it was subject to restriction on political movement or activism. So however, the Ban Krua community next door, the Muslim community, they protest, and we don't really know what to do, with us, so we supported them to do a research and publish the book about the history of Ban Krua, which they were there since the early Bangkok period. And so that after our strategy is to support the community by publishing the book, and we also thought about ourselves, because the main audience of Jim Thompson House is tourists, and tourists did not stay. They cannot be there for us, to defend why we still exist. And that's how they wanted to start something else, which is creating the gallery, the gallery for textile and contemporary art. So this is the first, the history of the Art Center. And because the board of the Jim Thompson Foundation back then, it consists of academia, a lot of people between American based in Thailand and the scholars. So they're really interested in historical and also anthropological kind of approach, of exhibition. The first exhibition was done by Susan Conway, who's a scholar from SOAS in England, and she proposed an exhibition which is a traditional textile from the north and the Shan state. It's called power dressing, and I think when I look back again, it's very interesting because it is totally kind of connect the textile with social history. And then we have people like Pinari, to be the first woman and contemporary artist, also working with the silk, with a soft sculpture. And then, from early 2000 up until before I joined, it's kind of, they still combine and alternate the show from very traditional exhibition, textile, to contemporary art. So we also work with Aryamani, from Indonesia. Around the mid-2000s, she came and she proposed us to do something in the deep south of Thailand to work with the Muslim community. And back then we were like, no, it's too dangerous. You can work with the Muslim community next door. So she also proposed working with the young girls, from that community, and we were so happy to do the exhibition with her. And then during COVID we have a lot more audience in the art center. So the board decided to expand. And then we built the new building, and then COVID came. So people are so surprised that, when did you guys build the building? We built during COVID. And then this is a space with galleries, 2 galleries, and we have libraries, bigger libraries. We have event space and also a canteen, and also the shop, as well as a parking lot. So the first exhibition, we kind of want to understand our position, where are we, what are we doing, because back then, in the past, Jim Thompson is very exclusive. And now we want it to be more inclusive, so we do open call with, we still want to connect with Jim Thompson in terms of the Cold War history. And we invited young curators and artists around the region to be the committee. So we got about more than 100 proposals, from around the world. The first project was, we have about 14 artists, to do a show related to the Cold War. We call it Future Tense. And then this is the recent show that we just opened before I fly here. It's called the Shatterverse, so we are looking at the Cold War again, from not only Southeast Asian perspective, but from post-Soviet country, so we invite more artists from Eurasia, from Kazakhstan, and from Poland. We have an artist group called Rafael Milak, he started a collective called Sputnik Photo Collective, and it's all younger generation of the post-Soviet country, and they have like a very kind of interesting project around like country like Poland and Latvia and all those countries. And I think this is very important for people in Thailand and Southeast Asia to really connect with the region that we totally unknown, like Eurasia and Kazakhstan. And I'm very lucky, to work with Amakun from Kazakhstan again, because I will do her solo show in Kazakhstan in this September. So if you guys want to go to Uzbek and Kazakh, please be there. So we also invite artists to do something on site, with the Jim Thompson House, and also this Muslim woman artist, she was born in the Bangkok community, and she has to move out from the community during the expressway. And then she have to go back, and so do something, and bring those connections back to Jim Thompson. And we also, because Jim Thompson is totally much related, involved in the diplomatic, cultural diplomacy and real politics during Cold War, we invite Grace Hyphen, who did a research on Bandung Conference. And we also have Naeem Mohammed. He did a beautiful 3 channels video on the non-aligned movement. And this is like, for me, I'm really happy, to bring all this show together in the context of Jim Thompson and our celebration. The last, almost the last one. For me, I see what I did in the past, Jim Thompson, before Jim Thompson is Project Field 4 and the project at the Saigon Open City. I would call it like, a happy failures. This is like what art can offer us. You really allow us to experiment something different, and even though it's fail, but it's still pretty much like, you still get something out of it, right? So working with community and, I remember when I was away from Bangkok, in the late 90s, I got a grant from Japan Foundation. So I gave a key, of 3 or 4 to the young artist collective called As Yet Unnamed, Not Yet in Progress. And they stay like 6 months in our space, so they can do anything with it. And right now, like all these guys, Bashya Pintong, Arin Lungchang, they become like one of the very important artists, of this generation. So, and also what happened in Saigon Open City, I just talked to Nora, like people still talk about it, even though it's failed, we cannot open for the public. But a young artist, and also our assistant, Alet, and a few volunteers, which is Thao Pan Nguyen, now they become like big name, artists, like the art laborers, they're around the world at the moment. So I think this is what's happening, after we left some seeds, in the ground, and something grow. I will touch a little bit on the open world in Thailand, because I learned a lot, from what happened in Vietnam, and I still feel trauma about that. So that's why when I was asked to do the Thailand Biennale in Chiang Rai, which is my hometown, I invited work groups to say, let's redeem, what we have done in Vietnam, because we know nothing about the context in Vietnam. But I was from Chiang Rai, especially Chiang San, the small city near the Mekong River, like, shall we do something like, and we kind of fix what we have done in the past. And of course, in Mekong again, it come back like, wow, this is the time that I can do something, with the context in Chiang Rai. Yes, 3 minutes. So go to the Zomia. Now I tell us like, you're going to use Zomia. Have you ever read James Scott? Yes. Everyone read James Scott. I think Taiwan loves James Scott as well. especially our good friend, Wei and all those, artists. So the idea of the Zomia, right? So we all know what it means, like the place of refuge, all this, the area from the edge of northeast of India to south of China, North Thailand, Burma, and Vietnam. So this is a place where people use it as, it's more like, the ungoverned, right? Or this the ideas of the escape, the idea of the zone of like, as kind of suspicious, people are evading taxation. But what happened now, in Zomia, I'm really interested in the argument of James Scott's student. Her name is Pin Kao. She's teaching at Chiang Mai University, and she proposed she called this Zomia now is dark Zomia. And I'm gonna read a little bit of this. So the ideas of Pin Kao, she discussed the proliferation of the illicit enterprise operated by Chinese syndicate along Myanmar and Thai borders. So far from being closure enclave, the transnational cyber scam industry has grown invisibly by weaving together various networks, both within and across the borders. So rethinking Scott's notion of shattered zone in the frontiers of Southeast Asia, Pin Kao argued that Myanmar's indigenous Zomia has increasingly been transformed into what she called dark Zomia, a non-state space inhabited by runaway criminals who invade China's state-making projects. As a result, the border region has become a contest terrain where the friction of sovereignties among various state and non-state entry has allowed illicit industry to thrive. So this become one of our keyword for Thailand Biennale. And then you see it, the other ideas that come from the open world actually is come from the Buddha image in this 700 years old temple. So we end up having 17 venues around Chiang Rai. And one of the venues that I really pour my energies and my heart in is around the Golden Triangle area where I come from. So we have a project from Ho Xing, he's doing a special O for me, like O for opium and O for ocean. And then we got artists from Yunnan. He's doing something related to the elephant, the history of elephant. Yeah, and then also we have Hmong artists. This is Wei's project about the Golden Triangle and also about dark Zomia. 2 more minutes, okay. Michael Lins, he did a representation of the tribe, from the Golden Triangle. And also this is the work by our beloved Taiwanese bamboo artist. And thanks for Teko, who supported us enormously. And then in Chiang Rai, this is one of the venues that Tarek Atui, Lippi, and also Lino, and also Hekuyang, they're all inspired by Chiang Rai, because we use Chiang Rai and Chiang San as a locus, for artists to express and also to explore the history. When Pinti, she put the engine in Mekong River, and she let us listen to the river. If the river the sound is very, quiet, it means the river that has been kind of blocked by the dam, Right? So what we saw in the last 30 years, our minor history, of alternative space has been well taken care by the AAA, and I think we have to do more, all this, the one that's already gone, right? So I think we have to preserve that memory. But what concerns me at the moment is the ecosystem is not so well balanced. I'm not talking about the market at all. I'm talking about alternative space, about alternative institutions like Jim Thompson Art Center, and the big museum and the big art space will open. Is what we saw here, right, in Taiwan. What happened in Southeast Asia, more museums will open, but it's all run by corporates all run by the top billionaires in the countries. So if I ask myself, where are we at Jim Thompson Art Center? Are we still relevant? Do we still why do we still exist? You know, if we have more space like this, we have many, many more Biennale. And I remember I got the answer when one of a young, bright curators from Hong Kong, she did a show with us, and she told me, Jeff, you know what? I barely do this show in my place. I said, yeah, maybe this is why we exist, you know, as a small oasis alternative institution, you know, serving people who really want to do something that they cannot do in their place. And I think this is what we are still meaningful, and this is why we still exist, you know, as an institution and as a curator. And I think even though Project 304 is closed down, but I think it's still here. The spirit is still here, and I think its spirit is there with every one of you guys. Thank you so much, and I wish all of us luck, okay?
Thank you to Gridthiya for such a wonderful speech. And now we have a very short Q&A section, but due to the time constraints, we only open to one question. So if you have any question, please raise your hand. Very precious opportunity. Anyone? Our staff will give you the microphone if you... Come on.
I thought we agreed that no questions.
Okay.
Charles, come on.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Joe. That was really amazing and obviously quite nostalgic for our generation, I suppose. But I wanted to ask, where is the Project 304 space today? I mean, like, why is there not your Project 304 space, but where is the energy and the passion? Is it located in the art field, or is it somewhere else, would you say? And I'm talking about Bangkok. Like, why isn't there a successor to 304, not from you, but from the next generation? Because now we're talking about another generation. And where do you think they find the possibilities? Maybe it's not in art, or that's my suspicion.
I think it's kind of shifted, you know, to something else. But right now, I always wonder about younger generation. Oh, why they didn't really have that kind of energy or the drive, you know, to start something by themselves. But you know what? I think maybe it's the same as the generation elsewhere who were born in the 90s and 2000. I think they were born with institution, so they have no ideas of like, oh, I can start from my apartment or my kitchen, right? So for them, they already, when they graduate from school, the question is, oh, where should I work? Should I work with Jim Thompson? Should I work with Singapore Art Museum? You know, or should I work with the Biennale? They already have something, you know, a lot already in the plate. Unlike us, you know, I always tell everyone that when you run the alternative space, like our generation, it's like when we drive and then we have to stop and then we make road. But this guy, they already have expressway. So if you have expressway, you don't think about, you don't know how to make road, right? You don't really know how to like suffer, what are we doing here? Yes. But I think Charles, it's in different, energy go to different direction because we still have few, not alternative space, artists run commercial gallery. This is another way to go. They're much smarter than us. For us, like, oh no, non-profit, you know, I'm straight from the Art Institute of Chicago. And you know what, I remember when Rachel Weiss, my advisor, asked me, oh, what do you think? Rachel, I wish I never go to school. Yeah, because like we have nothing like what you guys have, right? We didn't even have like 501c3 status. We don't have funding. We have nothing. But for me, you know, just a test. I want to test Thailand. I want to test like, can we survive? You know, if we have nothing, no, we cannot survive. It's totally like different. But when I saw they show up at the Bangkok Experimental Film Festival, I almost cried. They crave for this kind of stuff. You know, it has been gone for 10 years. And this younger generation right now in Thailand, they start Super 8 Club. They start to go back to 16 millimeters. They start to go analog. I think maybe the hope is somewhere, and if we didn't bring them together, we didn't see them, right? So it's still there, but we have to fight.
Thank you very much, and I think it's a wrap for today. 那明天的10点开始，1连2天，周六周日我会带来更多的讨论，敬请期待。Tomorrow at 10 a.m. we will continue with 2 more days of discussion, so taking place on Saturday and Sunday. Stay tuned for more. 那假设您有用证件去借那个导览耳机的话，请记得到柜台去取回您的证件。那假设您的耳机是在椅子上拿取的话，那请放在椅子上就可以了。Please do not forget to get back your ID card if you borrow earphones for interpretations. And if you did not entrust an ID card for earphones, please put it on your chair. Thank you.